Do you have memories and stories of your grandparents that you don't want to forget? There are many ways we can capture and share our own precious memories of our grandparents and honor their influence on us. To help you get started, we asked some of our favorite family historians to share their ideas for collecting stories about grandparents. Involve grandparents in family activities. Gathering grandparent stories doesn't have to be something you do at one set time. For those who can, involving grandparents in the everyday life of the family can open up storytelling opportunities. Carissa Rasmussen, founder of Family History Modernized, explains how. Get grandparents involved in the everyday life of your family. You'll be amazed at how much they'll reveal, and you'll learn from these spontaneous moments together. We love inviting grandparents to dance recitals, school performances, birthday parties, and other events. Although they may not make it to everything, they come when they can. At a recent dance recital, we learned about my grandma's song leader days in high school. She told my kids all about how important they were in revving up the crowd before the big game. Grandma later pulled out pictures of her in her song leader outfit, and we compared it to what cheerleaders wear now. A wonderful teaching and bonding experience ensued. Have family night with the grandparents. When it comes to discovering the stories of grandparents, why not make a night of it? That's just what Mariel Weingsgaard, founder of Warsaw, she says, suggests families do. One of my favorite things I did with my grandparents was to bring all my kids to their home for a family night. We each came armed with a list of questions to interview them. We asked questions about my grandpa's time in the Korean War and my grandma's memories of her parents. The kids asked them about their favorite birthday party, their favorite animal, and other cute questions that I wouldn't have thought of. We recorded the whole interview on my phone, and I plan on preserving it forever. At the end of the evening, we had a picture taken of everyone together, and I'm so glad we did, as my grandma passed away just months later. It was a special evening that we will never forget. Write weekly letters or emails. For many families, distance can make getting together difficult. Tammy Osmer Glatz, founder of Relatively Curious About Genealogy, says this doesn't have to prevent families from getting grandparent stories. Look to letters, she recommends. I truly value copies of family letters, some dating back to the early and mid-1800s, full of family details, who moved where, news of births, deaths, and marriages, and stories of everyday life, all written with the express purpose of sharing and preserving information, and all written very close to the time that the events occurred. Genealogy treasures for sure. Letters are still a great way to gather family stories from grandparents, especially when they live far away. Sending weekly letters or emails, depending on what your grandparents are comfortable with, can be a great way to get information about their lives. At the same time, sharing stories about you and your own family can provide a written record for descendants to learn about you. When my daughter wanted to learn more about her grandfather's life, she started emailing him once every week with 2 or 3 very simple questions. Many of them were about subjects that my dad didn't really talk about with my sister and me, such as what he did in the Navy in World War II, so the answers that he sent were often news to me. My daughter is putting together the responses in a memory book, and I'll be able to create a fuller biography of my father for my genealogy files. Record memories of grandparents in all kinds of ways. For Allison Kimball, it was the words of her dying grandfather that inspired her to look for ways to further preserve his legacy. Learn what she recommends others do to capture grandparents' lives and enrich a family history. I sat on the edge of my grandfather's bed as we visited. He was more reflective in his speech, and he finally asked, "Have I done enough? Have I made a difference?" As I looked at my dying grandfather and thought of all people he had served and influenced, I was overwhelmed by his humble plea. I told him he had done all required of him, and in a tender embrace, I had to ask if I was doing all I needed to. That night, as I sat in front of my journal, recording the events of the day, I was so thankful for these tender moments together with my grandfather. Moments where he shared his life experiences with me. I hadn't always recorded his stories, and I thought about how I, a mother of many young children, could preserve more of his life. Here are some ideas I came up with for capturing family stories. Use technology. My grandfather was nearly blind. Writing was not an option for him, but I recorded his stories on my phone. He also used a tape recorder to capture memories in privacy. Involve family, especially youth. Documenting someone's life can seem overwhelming, but if many people help, you can preserve more family history while sharing the experience. Create a family website. Make this a place where everyone can share their stories and experiences. You can also create an account on Instagram or another social network dedicated to family history. Keep things simple. Creating a formal history can be intimidating. If the person knows they are being recorded, they become self-conscious. Look for ways and opportunities just to listen. The stories will come more freely. Don't forget to ask the why questions. The who, what, when, and where are necessary in family history, but the why questions are often the ones that will have the greatest impact. Look beyond the facts, and you will find meaningful stories that change lives. Pass along grandparents' stories. For those of us whose grandparents have passed, opportunities remain to preserve their legacies. Carol Rice, founder of Family Storytelling, explains one powerful way to do that. Want to preserve the legacy of your grandparents? Tell their stories, as little or as much as you know. Tell it, share it, pass it down. Recently, my daughter was asked to do some public speaking. She wanted to share some thoughts about her grandma. She did a great job with her talk, but just as important, she took time to document her memories. Here's some of the stories she shared. Grandma smiled when she saw us and walked into the closet. She knelt down and took out 2 little perfumes and told me, "Oh, Brookie, you have olive skin and a wise personality. This perfume will smell perfect on you. And Chelsea, you have a kind heart and beautiful eyes. This smell will fit you." She taught us to dab 2 spots on our wrist and 1 on our neck and rub it together. I felt beautiful, like my grandma. Fast forward with me 2 years, I was now 9, and my grandma, only 58, had fought a hard and valiant fight with cancer. Her thick, full blonde hair was gone, her beautiful feminine figure now frail and thin. It was time for all of us cousins to come into her hospital room and say goodbye. We sang to her families can be together forever. I had been taught the words in church, and I knew them to be true. That moment and my love for my grandma have stayed with me and will linger forever, just like the sweet smell of her perfume. Anyone that story is shared with, friends, cousins, siblings, future children, and grandchildren, will be able to know just a little bit more about Brooke's grandma because she told it. Don't forget to share your own story. Valerie Elkins has some advice for grandparents themselves and grandparents-to-be. My best advice is for those who are grandparents now or who will be someday. The best thing you can leave your posterity is a bit about yourself and memories of your family. You are the bridge that will link the generations. What were your grandparents and great-grandparents like? What were the visits like? How did you celebrate holidays, and what were the foods and games you played? Our memories and stories will knit our families together to stay connected and help the younger generations to feel special about the people who are theirs. The Africans have a proverb, when an old person dies, a library burns. Our libraries, our memories, stories, and knowledge can be passed on from one generation to the next. Write information about events down, record audio stories, take video in which you interview yourself. Whatever form works for you, begin today. Your grandchildren will thank you. Start preserving your grandparents' stories. With so many ideas for collecting the stories of grandparents, why not get started right away? When you do, you'll enrich your own life while preserving the legacy of family elders for generations to come. You may also be interested in